Hello everybody and welcome back to the channel. Hope you're having a good day. Firstly, I just wanted to say thank you guys. The most recent video that came out did a lot better than I thought it was going to. It did actually very surprisingly much better than I thought it was going to. And I appreciate seeing all the very supportive comments. And I'm looking to make more videos like this that are a little bit longer, a little bit more in depth. So, you know, I appreciate that you guys like what I'm putting out. And today, boys, we're talking about cons. Cons, conventions, and nerd emporiums, as I like to call them, have a great soft spot in my heart. It's where I met a lot of my friends. It's where we get to meet, every single year, and we get to participate in a bunch of activities that revolve around stuff that we love, which is 90% streaming and video games. But this past weekend, I got to go to KC Comic-Con, or Planet Comic-Con. It was great. I got to see a bunch of cool collectibles. I saw some celebrities, robots, and of course, Gooner stuff. Like so much Gooner stuff. All in all, we had a great time, but it got me thinking, what about when cons go wrong? Anything ranging from poor hygiene to attempted murder happens at conventions, and today we're going to be talking about a few of those cases. First, we need to talk about some of the more common sins that you see at conventions. Everybody knows about poor hygiene and being smelly and all the crowds, but there's also things like glomping, which is where fans will sprint at full speed to give people surprise hugs or glomps. While extremely popular at anime conventions, this has led to numerous injuries and countless harassment complaints from con goers. Me and my buddy Keo actually went to Anime Expo last year, which is where I got this. I got that little skateboard, dude. And we still saw people doing this. It's not a old thing. It's still happening. One of them actually came up to us and said, "Hey, I'm gonna run up to my friend real quick and give them a surprise hug for a video if you can act surprised." Oh, I just sent a shiver down my own spine. And then they proceeded to tackle someone at full sprint, screaming, "Nezuko!" Or what about cosplayers who show up with just very NSFW or downright offensive costumes, including Nazi furries? Starting strong here. Individuals associated with the Furry Raiders and similar far-right groups have worn fursuits with red armbands, swastika-like symbols, or military-style uniforms resembling Nazi iconography. While some of these use altered symbols like paw prints or other slight modifications, the visual similarity to actual fascist imagery has sparked outrage. These costumes and affiliations led to bans from events, doxing threats, and significant public debate within the fandom. In fact, Rocky Mountain Furcon in 2017 was ultimately canceled after issues related to the Furry Raiders' involvement and growing safety concerns. Also, if you're wondering about any sort of mental stability of these people, this alt-right group started in 2007 on the game Second Life, if that gives you any idea what they're like. In early April, RMFC 2017 was canceled. Alleged suggestions of why this happened included a tweet by a Furry Raider that a weapon would be brought to RMFC to deal with Dio Vacus, who threatened to punch Nazis at the con. This was reported to the hotel police, which increased the security fee for the convention, well past operational budget. Following allegations made by Dio Tazdevil, okay, that's easier to pronounce, on Twitter about associations between the Furry Raiders and the Rocky Mountain Furcon, Dio was sent a cease and desist letter by Kahuki Leiru, I'm so sorry, the founder and CEO of MAAC at RMFC, with the blessing of the board, claiming to be a contract law officer and threatening to file for liens on her property and wages if she did not comply with the cease and desist. The letter's legal standing was brought into question by Boozy Barrister. These cannot be real people. A lawyer and writer for the blog Lawyers and Liquor. On Monday, April 10th, this received widespread attention in a Dog Patch Press article, which I don't know what it is, which also referenced past controversy about Kahuki's conviction of sexual contact of a minor. You know what? I'm taking back. I don't care if I mispronounce your name. What's your name? Kaki? I don't care. On the same day, RMFC announced that Rocky Mountain Furcon was canceled. They cited a sudden and drastic increase in security costs amounting to more than a third of their entire existing budget. They said this was related to very public threats of violence against one another by members of this community, as well as the negative backlash from misinformation spread about the conventions, its staff, and attendees, which according to Kaki, referred to Dio's allegations regarding the Furry Raiders and tweets about punching Nazis, but did not talk about the gun threat that Dio had received. The additional security costs referred to demands by the convention's venue, the Marriott Denver Tech Center, to contract the Denver Police Department for additional security, which would have amounted to $22,000 for daytime security and potentially double this to include evening security due to the hotel's concerns following the aforementioned threats of violence. But some of these conventions don't just end because of a few big bad wolves, dude. Sometimes it's the organizers who ruin the conventions by poor planning, terrible conditions, or straight up scamming their attendees. Besides Firefest and that Bluey meetup convention thing that happened a while ago, Tanacon is a less mainstream but very well-known internet convention / meme. Tana is a popular YouTuber who felt disrespected and unsafe at VidCon because she wasn't granted a featured creator badge, which would have allowed her access to backstage areas and other privileges. So she decided to throw her own competing convention across the street. Because if a well-organized convention with lots of money and lots of security can't protect you, a wide-open parking lot full of screaming fans can. Tanacon was massively oversold, overcrowded, and underprepared, and fans stood out in the sun for hours with nothing to do. No water and no food. It was shut down in the same day. Firstly, fans ended up waiting for a long time just to get into the event, despite having their badges and tickets ready with them. Fans who bought meet and greet badges were not exactly guaranteed to meet whoever they had gotten the badge for. It all depended on how many people the building was allowed to have. Some of the creators that had been invited to attend panels at Tanacon ended up not being able to spend time there because of their schedules with VidCon. Because remember, big conventions like VidCon have months to a year of planning that goes into them. Tanacon had, I think, a few weeks to plan everything out. After waiting over 5 hours in line, people were told to leave because having over 20,000 people in that place was breaking their fire code. So basically, these people just paid to wait in the sun for 5 hours and get a heat stroke. Fans eventually began to chant refund and the whole scene turned chaotic. Overall, the event was very disorganized. It was just a ballroom with not much to do. Creators weren't walking around meeting their fans. There weren't any kind of activities or food, and the merch was incredibly expensive. So Tanacon was definitely a blow to her reputation, but don't worry guys, she's doing just fine. She's still getting hundreds of thousands of views on her content.
Aw, you're such a good boy.
Yeah, you're so good.
Tanacon was a nightmare, and I kind of wish, honestly, we could return to those days of YouTube and social media where we had big drama that happened like a few times a year instead of just Twitter baiting that happens every few days. Maybe I'm just a drama purist or something, I don't know. But in the reign of overcrowding, we also had Anime Expo back in 2022. After the pandemic hiatus, Anime Expo returned with massive demand, but the con couldn't handle the numbers. There were hours-long lines, minimal crowd control, and fire code violations. People were fainting just from the heat and exhaustion. Listen, I was there for the convention back in 2022, and it was absolutely insane. I was lucky enough to wedge my way to the front of the line, again, with my buddy Keo. He's my con buddy. But it was nearly impossible to move throughout the convention center. You were elbow to elbow with everybody. Saw a booth you liked? Too bad. You're gonna have to wait till you get to the end of the convention hall to turn around and come back. Also, it was so goddamn musty. I don't know what y'all were doing in the pandemic, but apparently it wasn't showering. They ended up having to open these huge garage doors that the convention center had. And look, I'm a large man, okay? It felt like I was being buried alive by waifu pillows and Deku cosplayers. I'm gonna be honest, I'll be brave, I'll be beautiful. I think we should be legally allowed to spray some of these people with Lysol or cologne or something. Some of y'all need to be hosed down. I shouldn't have to hold my breath because I'm trying to get a soft pretzel. But besides that, the con was cool. There were lots of cool panels. There was lots of interesting meetups. It was pretty good, you know, despite the crowds and the awful stench. But of course, we can't talk about failed conventions if we don't also talk about DashCon. DashCon happened all the way back in 2014 and was marketed as a fan convention for Tumblr users. However, it would turn into a meme overnight for all the wrong reasons. Guests like Steam Powered Giraffe and Welcome to Night Vale pulled out after claiming they weren't even paid.
Unfortunately, what I have to tell you guys is that basically Night Vale just walked.
What?
Okay, if everyone would like to collectively groan and sigh together, that's what I've been doing, so we can take a second to do that. So on 3, we're all gonna sigh together, okay? So 1, 2.
Give me back my money!
Okay.
Attendees were left with disorganized panels and most memorably, access to a sad, tiny ball pit in the middle of a conference room. I think the implication when they advertised it was that the whole room was gonna be full, like a huge ball pit, and then it was just this tiny, little plastic pool full of balls. And that's all fine and dandy, but I'm sure you're ready to move on to some of the darker side of these conventions. In the same year as DashCon 2014, we had Midwest Fur Fest in Rosemont, Illinois, where a chlorine gas leak led to the evacuation of the hotel hosting the convention. Around 1 a.m. on the final night of the convention, the Rosemont Public Safety Department received several reports of a noxious odor on the 9th floor of the hotel. The hotel was evacuated and hazmat technicians decontaminated the area for 2 hours, and the building was eventually opened back up by 4 a.m. While investigating the scene, firefighters found a broken jar filled with white powder on the 9th floor of the emergency stairwell, as well as liquid on the walls. The air in the stairwell and in the hotel's large atrium both registered high levels of chlorine gas measuring above 60 ppm, surpassing the meter's maximum range. There was so much chlorine gas in there that it maxed out their tools. Samples of both the powder and liquid were taken, but due to improperly calibrated equipment, the results were inconclusive. In the hours after the gas leak, the Rosemont police said the evidence suggested an intentional act and began a criminal investigation. All in all, 19 people were hospitalized, but luckily, no one died because of this. In the following days, the police and FBI interviewed suspects, hotel guests and employees, and hospital workers, among others. The FBI continued to interview suspects until 2019, when the Illinois statute of limitations ran out. To this day, no one has been caught for the act. That's kind of crazy to think that the statute of limitations for a gas attack on a hotel is 5 years. I would also guess that the person who did this simply did it because it was a furry convention, which is just really sad. I know people like to meme on furries on the internet, but like you don't deserve to get gassed at your own convention. However, I do like to imagine it was somebody at the con and that some war-torn FBI agent had to watch the same footage of a cartoon wolf going in and out of the stairwell for 5 years. Like, one day, Mr. Specklevest, one day I'll get you. But what about the people who take things way too seriously? Like at the San Diego Comic-Con back in 2010, when 2 attendees got into an altercation that led to one of them stabbing the other one in the eye. The altercation began because one attendee thought the other was sitting too close to them. The incident took place in the convention center while fans were waiting for a panel featuring actor Seth Rogen discussing the science fiction comedy Paul. Why are you going to a panel for the movie Paul? Honestly, if there's any reason to be blinded in this world, it's for absolutely loving the movie Paul. And I think a lot of these people just have pent up anger and they get into fights over the stupidest things, like a brawl that broke out at New York Comic-Con in 2017 over a Funko Pop. A group of people tried to cut in line for a Funko Pop exclusive drop. Other attendees called them out, which escalated into shouting, pushing, and eventually a small brawl in the merch area. I'll be honest, I'll be brave and beautiful once again. I hate Funko Pops. They look so creepy with their little beady eyes, and every store that you go into has like walls and walls of them, and you feel like they're just gonna fall on you and you're gonna be buried alive by all these Funkos. Although I'll be honest, I'm pretty sure there's a bunch of people who just want to be like crushed to death by a bunch of Hades figures. Staff and security eventually came to break it up, and some of those involved were kicked out and banned for the rest of the convention. All of these figures also just ended up on eBay like an hour after they were picked up. The people who got into a fight must have been scalpers, dude. There's no reason to have a brawl over a mass-produced plastic bird. And sometimes the want isn't even that malicious, like the secret fan meetup for Pokimane in 2019, when someone who was apparently from her team was promoting a meetup at a park near the convention center. Dozens showed up, but no one was there. It was later revealed that the individual was just fishing for followers and clout on a throwaway account. That's so sad, dude. Hey guys, make sure to follow my account, Big Titty Jeff 97, to get access to the exclusive Pokimane meetup at Hunter's Park. You know, some people are just so ready and willing to take advantage of people who are just in town for a good weekend, hang out with their friends, maybe stab a few other people, you never know, and get their signed Scooby-Doo mask. Anyway, that's it for this video. Thank you guys for watching, and if you have any crazy con stories, make sure to put them in the comments down below. Like and subscribe, and I will see you guys in the next one. Okay, thank you. Bye.